Hello and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a WoW Refugee guide for Final Fantasy XIV. A little while ago, I did do a 5 beginner tips video for Final Fantasy XIV, which you can watch if you want to, but this video is more towards people who have played WoW before, and is going to be going into a lot more detail. So we have a lot of things to get through, so I think we should just get straight into the video right now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go into is talking about the free trial. Did you know that Final Fantasy, the critically acclaimed MMORPG, has a free trial all the way up to level 60, which includes the first expansion, Heaven's Ward, with no time restrictions? I did that on the first take, and I don't know if that's right or not, but we're going to go with it. So, yes, you can start by playing the game for free. It does come with the first expansion as well, and that is hundreds and hundreds of hours of content, which you do not have to pay for, and yes, there are no time restrictions either. There are a few restrictions, however. I'll go over them quickly. None of them are that massive. There is a guild cap. You cannot yell. You cannot access auctions, cannot trade. You cannot send letters, hire retainers. We'll go over what they are later. You cannot realm visit. You cannot assemble a party. However, you can still join a party. You cannot PvP, and you cannot use the forums. And I don't think you can join a free company either. Most of these restrictions are in place to prevent real-life gold selling and things like that. You can still very much play the game and enjoy the game on a free trial. Now we've got through the free trial, we need to think about where we want to play. So what data center, what server, what world we want to play on. So if you want to play with friends, it is very important that you play together on the same data center for now. Later, with rumored to be around September, November time, they're going to be introducing data center travel, where you'll be able to travel to any data center in the world, which is very, very cool, but that is not in the game just yet. If you want to play with your friends, make sure you're on the same data center. Now, if you want to be in a guild or a free company with your friends, then you will need to be on the same world. So make sure that you communicate with the group of people that you wish to play with, so you can make sure that you are together. Also, if you chose to, you could create multiple characters on multiple data centers around the world, and you can do this right now. So if you live in the EU but you have friends in North America, you can create a character on a North American server on the same account with just one sub fee, if that is something that you wanted to do. If you choose to only have one character on one world, then your sub fee will be slightly cheaper. It's something that I choose to do because I don't really have any need for multiple characters, and the vast majority of players don't have any need for multiple characters either. So if you wanted to save a little bit of cash, you can do that. Now, if you're trying to get into a world that your friends are on, and maybe you create your character and you press join world, you could get a message up that says that the world is full and you are unable to create your character. If that happens, do not panic. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to access that world ever. It just means that you cannot access the world right now, that second. So all you need to do is really just keep trying, keep spamming the join button. You might get through. If you keep trying and you don't get through at that moment in time, I'd recommend just logging on late at night when the server is quiet, and then trying to create your character. Then you should be able to get through. And let's be honest, we're MMO players. We're up pretty late anyway. You'll notice on some worlds, there'll be a symbol next to it that I think is a star symbol, and that basically tells you that this is a preferred world. New characters made on preferred worlds will have an experience boost up to level 70. This boost is fairly useful, obviously, it's an experience boost, but it is not entirely necessary, okay? So, the way that the game was designed is as long as you just play through the story, you're going to get to max level anyway, so this experience boost isn't entirely necessary. So if your friends are playing on a non-preferred world, don't worry, you're not missing out on too much. It is useful when you want to level up your alternative classes later on in the game. Don't worry, you're not missing out on that much, and the buff is temporary, so you will not have it forever. So now we're going to talk about character creation, and we will have our list of races that you can play, and these races will also have sub-races as well, which you can choose from. Now, some of the sub-races are quite different from each other. Most of them, as you'll notice as I go through them, will just be a slight color hue change in certain parts of the physique. There are lore reasons for this. I'm not going to go into that now for the purpose of keeping this video as short as possible. But you can look into that if you wish. So the first race is the Eorzea, which is essentially the human. The first sub-race is the Midlander, which is your classic Final Fantasy protagonist look. If you want to look like Cloud Strife or Tidus or Lightning, then this is the one that you want to go for. On the other subrace is the Highlander, which is kind of your buff human being, kind of looks a bit like Norse, Nordic type of look. So if you want to play your beefcake, then the Highlander is for you. Then we have the Mikote, which is the infamous cat race of Final Fantasy XIV. One of the subraces is the Sun Clan, which has a brighter, browner, more tanned hue. And then you have the Moon Clan, which has more blue, darker purple hue. Then we have the Elizon, which is your classic elven fantasy race. There has to be one, of course. So the first subrace is the Wildwood Clan, which is kind of like your very typical wood elf look. And the second subrace is the Duskwood Clan, which is, as you can tell by the name, a darker, more purplish hue to the race. And we have the Rodigan, which is the Tonk race. If you want to play the beefcake of the beefcakes, this is the one you want to go for. If you're used to playing like a Draenei or an Orc, this might be the race for you. They're very big and they're kind of barbarian looking. You will have the Sea White Clan, which has a bluer tint, and then you will also have the Hellsguard Clan, which has a reddish tint. And then you have the Lalafell, which is the potato falafel race of the Final Fantasy universe. The first subrace is the Plains folk, which they have fairer skin and they have earth-toned hair. And then you have the Dunes folk, which are from the desert, so obviously they are more tanned and have darker hair. Then we have the Aura, which is the edgy dragon goat race. We have the, I hope I say this right, Rayan clan, which is a tanned, brighter clan that has seen the sun. And then we have the Zayla, which is the opposite, purple, blue, darker hue, have never seen the sun, like me. Then we have the Hrothgar, which is the Lion Boy race. If you're a fan of Ronso and Final Fantasy X, you might like this race, or maybe you just like the Lion King, then maybe you'll enjoy playing as the Hrothgar. So you have the Helion clan, which is the brighter hue, and then you have the Lost Claw, which is the darker hue. At this point in time, the Hrothgar is gender-locked to male only. However, a female version of the Hrothgar is being developed at the moment, so that will be coming soon. Then we have the Viera, which is the bunny race. So you have the Rava clan, which is more tanned, and the Vina clan, which is more pale. At the moment, the Viera is gender-locked to female only. However, in Endwalker, which comes out in November, the male Viera will be released as well. All of these races have certain base stats, and some are better than others, but I will say that in the long run, these stats are so insignificant, don't even be concerned with them. There is absolutely no point. Just pick the race you like the look of the most. And if you're not really sure what race you want to play, you can change your race if you want to. You can buy a Fantasia potion from the store. However, you do also get a free Fantasia potion when you finish the main story of A Realm Reborn at around level 50. So if you do decide while you're leveling up for A Realm Reborn that you don't really like the way you look, you can change later on for free if you wish. Okay, so now we go on to the areas where you will start your adventure. So there are 3 areas you can start in, depending on what class you decide to start with. So the first area you can start in is Gridania. It's kind of a woodland area, kind of like reminds me of the Shire or Kakariko village in Legend of Zelda. The next one you can go to is Limsa Lominsa, which is my personal favorite, which is a portside city. It's kind of piratey themed. And then you have Uldar, which is a desert city, and it's very much focused on its markets and profits. Do not be too worried. You are not tied in any way to the city that you choose to start with. It's just where you will begin your journey. So if you want to play one class that doesn't start in the city that you want to start in, it doesn't matter. You're not tied to that city in any way. So if you want to play a gladiator, but you really like the look of Gridania, for example, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's get into classes and jobs. So you will pick your class and you will start at level 1. You will level that class up to level 30, and then you will unlock your job. Your job is essentially your awakened version of the class that you are playing, and when you get that job, you will unlock a load more abilities, and the fantasy of the role that you're playing will kind of begin to feel more tangible. Final Fantasy, much like WoW, follows the classic Holy Trinity tank, DPS, and healer way of playing. The main difference between Final Fantasy and WoW is WoW you have your classes and then you have your specializations within the classes. Final Fantasy, you don't have any specializations. The class and the job is what it is. If you're a tank, you're a tank. You cannot switch to be a DPS version of that job, okay? So, let's get into what classes and jobs you can play. So the first one is the Gladiator, which at level 30 will turn into the Paladin. This is your classic sword and board tank class. Then you go into the Marauder, which at level 30 will turn into the Warrior, which is a job that holds a massive two-handed axe and is also a tank. Then you have the Arcanist. Now the Arcanist is very interesting because you will actually at level 30 unlock 2 jobs. So you will unlock the Scholar job, which is a healing job, and then you will also unlock the Summoner job, which is your pet DPS class, kind of like the Warlock. If you have played Final Fantasy X, you'll be very familiar with what the Summoner is. The good thing about this job is that if you choose to level up the Summoner, you will also leveling up the Scholar at the same time, so you're actually getting 2 jobs to level 50 at once. Then you have the Conjurer, which turns into the White Mage, which is your classic normal type of healer priest kind of thing. Then you have a Pugilist, which turns into the Monk, so that is your fist kind of melee DPS. Then you have the Lancer, which turns into the Dragoon, which is another melee DPS, which uses a spear, which is currently the job that I am playing. Then you have, I hope I say this right, the Thaumaturgy, I don't know. Then which turns into the Black Mage, which is your classic wizard or mage type of class. Then you have the Archer, which at level 30 turns into the Bard, which is your ranged DPS with the bow and arrow. However, the Bard is also very much a support class as well, and uses songs and music to buff the party. So if you're interested in doing a little bit of support too, the Bard might be for you. So these are the classes that you can play as soon as you start the game. There are other classes, but you do need to unlock them through playing through the game. So let's go through some of those. The first one is the Rogue class, which you unlock at level 10. And that class at level 30 will turn into the Ninja, which is exactly how it sounds. So if you are wanting to play as a ninja class, don't worry too much, because when you unlock the Rogue class at level 10, it starts at level 10. So you won't be wasting too much time. Just make sure that you pick a job that starts in Limsa, because that's where you unlock the Rogue. The other jobs that you can unlock is the Samurai, which you can unlock at level 50. The Samurai also starts at level 50 as well. So you can do a straight, easy switch to the Samurai if you want to. The Samurai doesn't have a lot of group utility, however, it has a lot of damage to make up for it, so if you're into that, go and switch to the Samurai. You also have the Red Mage, which is a hybrid melee / magic DPS class, which is very, very fun. You unlock at level 50, it starts at level 50 as well, so you can do a straight swap to that, and they have very, very cool hats. So if you're a fan of Zorro, try the Red Mage. You have the Dark Knight class, which is a tank class that uses a massive two-handed sword and looks incredibly cool. Now, you do technically unlock this job at level 50. However, you cannot actually access the unlock quest for this job until you reach Ishgard, which is the first city of the Heavensward expansion. So you will have to get to Heavensward before you can unlock the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight will start at level 30, so you will have to do a little bit of re-leveling if you want to play a Dark Knight. You also unlock the Machinist, which is kind of a ranged DPS, which uses mechs and guns and bombs and things like that. You unlock it at level 50, but again, like the Dark Knight, you have to unlock it in Ishgard, so you'll need to get to Heavensward first. And that also starts at level 30, so you'll need to do a little bit of leveling for that one too. After that one, you have the Gunbreaker, which is a tank class which uses a gun blade. If you are a fan of Final Fantasy VIII, you will be a fan of this job. You unlock it at level 60, it starts at level 60, so you can do a straight swap if you wish. You will also unlock the Dancer, which you get at level 60, it starts at level 60, it's a ranged DPS spec, but also has a lot of utility and support as well. Now, the class actually plays like a Dance Dance Revolution game, so that's very, very cool, and I definitely think it's worth a try as soon as you get to level 60. And then we have the new jobs coming in Endwalker, which is a new expansion. So we first have the Sage, which is a healing job, which uses shield healing and uses these laser things that float around, which look pretty cool. And then you have the Reaper job, which uses a massive scythe, which is a melee DPS job, also seems to have a minion, and is highly likely to be the job that I switch to when Endwalker comes out. Hello, voiceover Rob here. Just wanted to quickly talk about a job that I forgot to mention when I originally recorded this video. That job is the Blue Mage, which is a job that you unlock at level 60. Now, this job is extremely unique and is more geared towards like alternative side content. So this isn't a job that you really need to be concerned with at all at the moment. Anyway, back to the video. A little bit of a side note, this game gives you fantastic job fantasy because from level 1 all the way up to max level, there are class/job quests. You have your own subplot to the role that you have chosen to play. It's very important that you do these quests. I'm going to talk about why in a second, but I thought I'll just mention that very, very quickly. Now, it's very important to mention, and I'm sure some of you knew this already, but you can play all of the jobs on one character. It is very, very easy to switch from job to job, and you can do that pretty seamlessly simply by changing your weapon. The only point in time that you cannot change your job is when you're in an instanced bit of content. One character can play all your jobs. There is really no need to have more than one character. So have your one character, save you a little bit of money, and really invest in that one thing. Okay, so now we're going to how do we level up? How do we get through the content? How do we get into the expansions? Okay, so the first thing to do is something called the MSQ, which means the main scenario quest. Now this is the main quest. It's the story quest that takes you through the entirety of the expansions. This is the thing that is the most important thing to focus on when leveling up. Fortunately, the main scenario quest is also by far the fastest way to level up. So the main scenario quest uses a symbol that I will put somewhere on the screen here, and it will also appear in the top of your screen as well with the main scenario quest that you are on. Just make sure that you keep paying attention to that and following that as much as you can. That is how you want to level up. Now, there are other quests that you do need to be aware of as well. There are quests called unlock quests that use a blue exclamation mark symbol that looks a bit like this one. It is very important that you do these too, because these quests will unlock things in the game, like raids, like dungeons, like trials, like beast tribes, like areas, like the Barbers and things like that. So make sure whenever you see a blue quest that looks like this, you do it because it's important. It's going to unlock a feature of the game that you're going to want. Then you also have your class quests, which will also have the blue unlock symbol of it as well. The class quests will also appear under the main scenario quest at the top of your screen. So as soon as you've unlocked a class quest for your job, you'll see it in the top of your screen. Make sure you go and do it because these quests will unlock new abilities that you're going to want to use, especially when you get into group content. So make sure you do those as soon as you unlock them. Through A Realm Reborn, you unlock them every 5 levels or so, and I think in Heaven's Ward it's every couple of levels. Just make sure you keep an eye on the top of your screen if you've got a class quest there. Head off, take a break from the main scenario quest, and have a go with that class quest. They're all really, really cool, and they're really, really fun, so make sure you do them. Then you also have side quests which look like this. There is really no need to be doing these on your first job that you are leveling up. It's not like WoW when you will finish a whole entire zone and then move on to another zone. You can really just ignore these, don't even bother with them at all. Use them for when you're leveling up alt jobs later on in the game. Also, I know there are people in other MMOs that like to do dungeon grinding. That in this game for your first class/job is so pointless. Please don't do that. It's a complete waste of time because even if you do get to max level or you do get to level 50 on your first job with dungeon grinding, you will not be able to get to Heaven's Ward because you have not played through the main scenario quest. All the stories link, and to be able to get to the next story, you need to play through the MSQ. So make sure that you just do the MSQ. Don't worry about grinding. The MSQ is so much faster than grinding anyway. So much faster, so just play through that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about traveling. So there are a few ways you can get around the world in Final Fantasy XIV. One of them is with your legs. The other one is with your mount's legs or your mount's wings. The other one is through using the Chocobo riding service, which is kind of like a flight path. And then you have the Aetheryte shards, which is pretty much the way that you should be getting around. So Aetheryte shards are basically teleportation points. You have large ones that you'll see on the map, which are in different zones, basically. And then you have smaller ones that you'll see in major cities, which can take you to one side of the city to the other side of the city very, very quickly. If you see an Aetheryte shard, make sure you attune with it because it's very, very useful. How the game used to be is that teleporting would be the most convenient way of getting around, but it would be a more expensive way of getting around, so most people would use teleporting very sparingly. However, nowadays, You make so much money through the main scenario quest and through everything else that you can just teleport anywhere you want to go. I have made over 1 million gil, and I haven't even tried making money. So just teleport anywhere you need to go. Don't worry, it's the fastest way, it's the most convenient, and don't worry about gil. Just teleport everywhere. So at level 17, you will unlock some quests for the Hall of the Novice. You will unlock these quests in the Adventurers Guild in your starting city. The Adventurers Guild is essentially the tavern-looking place. It's pretty much the first place that you'll end up going to as soon as you start the game, which is essentially a set of scenarios, a small instance scenarios, which teaches you how to play your role. So either tank, melee DPS, range DPS, or healer. So if you're a tank, it will tell you teach you how to do threat and things like that. If you're a healer, it'll tell you how to use your healing spells, and if you're a DPS, it'll tell you how to not stand in the fire. Now, I know a lot of you people are probably veteran players of other MMOs and know how to do that anyway, but I would highly recommend you still do the Hall of the Novice, because there are some differences in how Final Fantasy shows you like AoE damage and things like that, and you also do get some really good gear from it, so it is actually worth it for that reason. And you get a ring that gives you a slight XP boost as well. So I highly recommend you do that just to get to grips with how the game works. And for the good gear. There are also these things called guild tests as well, which are also small instance scenarios which teach you how the game works, basically. You could do those if you want to, if you're not entirely confident with group content, but most of you probably are. So now we're going to talk about the true end game of all MMOs, which is unlocking mounts and pets. So the first mount you'll get at level 20, you'll need to look out for a quest called My Little Chocobo. You'll go through a little quest and you will get your first mount, which will be a Chocobo. At level 30, you'll get another quest where you'll be able to use your Chocobo as someone who can help you in fights and heal you and stuff like that. So make sure you look out for that, because that's very useful too. But otherwise, pets and mounts unlock pretty much the same way as they do in WoW. You get them from reps, you get them from quests, you get them from raids, you get them from trials, you get them from all of the things like that. What's really, really cool about this game is that, let's say you want to get a very rare mount that drops from a raid. Every time you run that raid and you don't get the mount, you will get a token. Now, when you get 99 tokens, you'll be able to go to a vendor and purchase the mount. Meaning that if you are unlucky enough to not get the mount after 99 runs, you will be able to get it 100% definitely. This is a good thing because it means that even if you don't get the mount, you're still working towards it at least. And also, for the mount collectors out there and the pet collectors, on old content there is no lockout at all, so you can farm that shit to your heart's content. Get those mounts, get those cool things, or as soon as I get to max level, I'll be joining you, trust me, I'll be joining you. So then we're going to go on to instance PvE content and things like that. So they're much like WoW. A dungeon is slightly different. So in WoW you have 3 DPS, a healer, and a tank. In Final Fantasy you will have 2 DPS, 1 melee, 1 ranged, a tank, and a healer. Dungeons really work in sort of the same sort of pattern. So you'll have trash, boss, trash, boss, trash, final boss, done. Then you'll have trials, which are 8-man kind of scenarios, where you will have 2 tanks, 2 healers, and there are 4 DPS. These are 1 boss scenarios, so there are no trash at all. It goes straight in, like a Final Fantasy boss you'd find in the single-player RPGs. These are scenarios that happen in very poignant moments of the story. Most of them will have their own unique music. Is very, very cool fights, and I'm sure you're going to really enjoy them. There are also raids, and there's loads of different types of raids. Let's just worry about that a little bit later. Also, for these dungeons, you could be paired up with people who are higher level with you. Now, this game has level sync by default, so if you're playing a dungeon which you are out leveling, you'll be level synced down to an appropriate level for that dungeon. So you will get to experience it sort of like how it was back in the day. If you are synced down, you're going to be synced down to the maximum level you can be for that dungeon and the maximum item level for that dungeon too. So you're still going to be very, very strong. I believe in the settings you can make it even harder if you really want to experience what it was like back in the day. But level sync is there automatically in the game. So let's say if you have friends in Final Fantasy who are veterans who have loads of high-level jobs, they can play with you in every scenario and dungeon that you play through because they will just get level synced down to your level, which is really, really cool. It's also important to mention for the mount and minion collectors out there that you are able to go into these dungeon raids unsynced solo, so you can go through and one-hit everything and get and farm it like that if you want to. Really cool thing about this game is you can actually just queue up and do that. Just queue up unsynced without a group. You'll go straight in, so you don't even have to go to the entrance of the dungeon. You can just keep farming that shit. Keep farming that shit all you want. So to unlock the Barbers, or in this game it's called the Aesthetician or Aesthetician, I don't really know. You will unlock it by a quest, which is a blue unlock quest called Beauty's Only Scalp Deep. So to access the Barbers, you will need to go to an inn. You can access an inn room by going to the Adventurers Guild and speaking to a person behind the counter. You can then ring the Barbers Aesthetician bell, I can't say it, and he will come and sort you out. There's also Glamour and Transmog. That's actually quite... There's a lot to explain there, so I'm just going to link to another video, which will be in the description below. And then you have Retainers. Retainers you would unlock near the market board in your major city. Now, it is important to unlock these because these essentially work as your bank. So if you want to store items, you need to get your Retainers. You'll unlock it at quest at around level 17. They can do other things for now, but let's just worry about them being your bank. Now, when you immediately log into Final Fantasy for the first time, you will notice that next to your name you have a little sprout symbol. This is a symbol that tells every other player in the game that you are new. You will also automatically be put into the Novice network. So when you look down into the bottom left corner of your screen, you will see a bunch of green text. These are all people in the game who are new, just like you, playing through. So if you want to converse and talk with other newbies and other people in the game, you can, and you can do it through the Novice network. And if you want to make friends that way, you can too. You'll be able to talk to mentors and stuff like that as well through the Novice network. If you have any questions, they'll be happy to answer those. And I will as well in the comments below. Now, I know a few people out there kind of don't like the idea of having a sprout symbol next to the name. They think of it as having like a new driver plate on your car. But it isn't really like that at all. Actually, older veteran players really like having new players in the instance. Just yesterday I was doing a dungeon for just before I made it to Shadowbringers, and the party, when I zoned in, the other members of the party actually celebrated because there's a sprout in their group. I'm still a sprout, which means that everybody in the party gets an experience boost. They actually thanked me for the XP boost. I mean, I didn't really do anything, but you're very welcome. The player base is generally, to my personal experience, extremely nice to new players. Now, the user interface is something that is entirely customizable. You do not need add-ons, you do not need bartender or move anything, whatever, to sort your UI out. You can literally do anything, really anything you want with it. And you can also have separate saves of different types of UI. So you have a certain UI for your healing, you could switch straight to that. Or if you have one for your DPS, you could switch to that, or for whatever situation you need it for. Now, speaking of add-ons, add-ons aren't really something that are in Final Fantasy XIV. In fact, they are technically against the terms of service. I mean, you can get away with using them as long as nobody really finds out that you're using them. The only decent add-on that I know about through research is an add-on called ACT or ACT, I'm not sure, which is a DPS meter, a parser, and kind of like a deadly boss mod type of add-on. However, as there's no support for these add-ons, it's not like, well, we can just drop them into a folder. They're a real pain in the arse to get working. I was watching some of the tutorials and I cannot be asked to do that. And to be honest, I don't have any add-ons installed. You don't need them really. There is really no reason to have them, in my opinion. I think they were going to support add-ons, but because this game is also on PlayStation, I think they decided to change their mind. I'll give you some forewarning, because add-ons are against the terms of service. If you were to have a DPS meter or something like that installed, and you were to use that to be toxic towards other players, or gloat or whatever, that could get you banned, and it has, and it's gotten very high-profile Final Fantasy streamers banned before. So that is just a forewarning for you. Not necessarily to say that you can't have a DPS meter. It's not necessarily to say that you can't be competitive with other players. You just need to make sure that you are playing... If you're doing that, you just need to make sure that if you're doing that, you're playing with a group of like-minded individuals like yourself. If that's what you want to do it. Just do it in your space. If you do that, then you'll be fine. And to be honest, the idea of not being able to belittle other players in pug groups for suboptimal DPS puts you off playing the game, and quite frankly, good. I don't want you here, and I'm pretty sure the vast majority of other people in this game don't want you here either. Play something else. So, as I mentioned briefly earlier, this game is also on console, and you can play this game with a controller if you wish. Now, I know a lot of people may scoff at that and laugh at it, but actually a lot of high-level players do use a controller, and it is perfectly viable to do that. This game has been designed from the ground up to be used on console. It was on the PlayStation 3, remember? Also, Final Fantasy XI was also on the, which is the MMO before Final Fantasy XIV, was on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation, I believe, as well. So if you want to, you can lay back and you can play with a controller and proper loaf out and to do those grinds if you wish. There is also cross progression. If you wanted to have this game on PC and PlayStation 2, you can hop over if that's something that you wanted to do. However, you will have to buy the game twice, which is a little bit annoying, but you'll only need one sub. And I don't think you need PlayStation Plus, but I do think the game is quite cheap on PlayStation now. But I guess this is kind of a niche thing for the vast majority of people will just play it on one place anyway. Your PlayStation friends on Final Fantasy XIV, you can slowly convert them to being PC players, which is where all the fun really is. Now, I think that's it for the main features of the game that you need to know about just to get going with the game. Now I'm going to talk about mindset and how you really want to approach this game. Don't worry, this isn't going to turn into some sort of Tony Robbins seminar. I want to just give some advice on where your expectations should be when you come into this game for the first time. A Realm Reborn is the worst part of the game, as everybody says, and it is slow to begin with, definitely, and it can be a little bit of a slog at times. However, it's not that bad. Like, as people say A Realm Reborn like it's horrendous, it's not actually that bad. It's not bad at all. If you've played and leveled up recently in Classic or Burning Crusade Classic, or if you played Vanilla back in the day or whatever, you'll be fine. Trust me, you'll be fine, because it's not as bad as that. You'll be fine. Now, I think it's worth bearing in mind how A Realm Reborn came about. So they had to redo the entire game. The game when it was first released was really bad. Like, if you see some of that footage, you're really, really bad. And they turned it around and made A Realm Reborn into something that's actually fairly decent, which is, when you see what the state of the game was in, is quite impressive feat, actually. People say it gets good when you get to Heaven's Ward, and that's because the developers didn't have to redo the game when they got to Heaven's Ward. They could just make something that they really wanted to make. So just bear that in mind when you go through the first initial game. And I do, please don't skip anything. It's so important that you go through the quests and you experience it, particularly when you get later in the game. It will really connect you to what this game is. Also, WoW can put you into some bad habits. So I bet the vast majority of you who play WoW, when you get a quest, you immediately click off it and move on to whatever you need to do. That is not something you want to do in this game. You really do want to engage with the story, and you want to read. You want to play this game like it is a normal RPG, like it's a normal solo Final Fantasy game. Engage with it like that. Make sure you read, make sure you are in the game. It will pay off, and you'll be rewarded with a fantastic story, I promise. Just engage with the game. If you don't, you're going to be bored out of your mind, I promise you. And as the developers have said, this is their Final Fantasy game first, MMO second, so you need to engage with the game like that. The last thing I want to talk about before I finish this video is pressure. And what I mean by that is, don't put too much pressure on this game. So a lot of people, when they come into this game, they think, let's try Final Fantasy, let's see if it's going to make me quit World of Warcraft. And that's not really the mindset that you want going into this game. Final Fantasy XIV does not have to replace anything. You are allowed to enjoy more than one game. The game is something that can very much be enjoyed casually as a second MMO. To play Final Fantasy, you do not have to quit World of Warcraft ever. Okay, you are allowed to play both games if you enjoy both games. Don't put pressure on this game like it needs to replace something in your life. Think of it as something that may be an addition in your life if you wish to carry on playing. Now, of course, having said that, This game's not going to be for everyone. You might like it, you might not, but just go into it with a nice open mind. I think it's important to discourage tribalism over products made by corporations that we pay for. Remember, these are just games that we play for fun, and it's nothing more than that, okay? So if you're a WoW refugee, or you're someone who still plays WoW and wants to try something else, go into this game with an open mind, take your time, engage with the story, get immersed in the world, and remember, it's just a game. So if any Final Fantasy veterans are watching this video, and I know there's some of you out there, and you think that I've missed a couple of points, please put those in the comments below. If you're a new player, refugee, or whatever, and you have more questions, put those in the comments below too, and I'll endeavour to answer as many of those as I possibly can. If you like the video, please do give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help me out quite a lot. Share the video with a friend, or more importantly, share it with a sprout. Hopefully this will help them out too. Follow my social medias and stuff. It's all in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I very much hope to see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.